You would never guess that the worst moment of your career would happen on a quiet residential street one afternoon. But sometimes systems designed to protect people turn into weapons. And the only thing standing between justice and abuse is one person's refusal to back down. For Naomi Caldwell, that moment came when Officer Trent Sloan opened the car door and accused her of driving a stolen vehicle. Naomi, 34 years old, was a senior agent with Homeland Security investigations. With very dark skin and a controlled coolness honed by 12 years of federal law enforcement. She had spent her career investigating public corruption, tracking down criminal networks that preyed on vulnerable communities. She knew power well, how it worked and how it was abused. She had the knowledge and experience. That Tuesday afternoon, she was driving home in her red sedan, 3 blocks from her mother's house in the Maplewood neighborhood. The car belonged to her late husband Michael, who had passed away from cancer 8 months earlier. She had transferred the car's registration to her name, cared for it meticulously, and kept it clean. The car was one of the last things left to her. It could be considered one of her few mementos. Naomi loved her deceased husband very much. That's why she cherished and protected the memories he left behind. As Naomi turned off the radio, red and blue lights appeared in the rearview mirror. Naomi assessed the situation immediately with trained sensitivity. She chose her parking spot carefully. A well-lit area where security cameras were visible on 3 neighboring houses, and neighbors were sitting on their porches. She turned on her hazard lights, rolled down all 4 windows, placed both hands on the steering wheel, and waited. She didn't make any sudden movements. She knew what could happen to her if she did. She had experienced this kind of thing in the past. Her skin color seemed to be treated as her biggest disadvantage. The patrol car door slammed. Heavy boots echoed on the sidewalk. Officer Trent Sloan approached with the air of someone looking for conflict rather than a solution. He had worked for the Maplewood Police Department for 6 years, had a record of complaints that were consistently dismissed by internal affairs, and had a reputation that was unspoken among community members, but known to everyone. "Get out of the car now," Sloan yelled, his voice echoing down the street. "Of course," Naomi said, keeping her voice steady. "I'll get my license first. My hands are on the wheel. I'm slowly moving my right hand toward my bag," she warned him. She didn't want him to misinterpret and intervene. "This car has been reported stolen. Get out now," said Sloan. Naomi continued her movements deliberately. "There must be a mistake. This car belonged to my husband. It's registered in my name," she replied. "I said get out," Sloan warned again. Before Naomi could fully open the door, Sloan yanked it open with such force it shook the entire car. He grabbed Naomi's wrist and pulled her from the seat. Naomi stumbled toward the sidewalk, maintaining her balance thanks to her trained instincts. "Stop resisting," Sloan yelled, but Naomi had made no move other than trying to stand firm. "I'm not resisting," Naomi said calmly, her federal training suppressing the anger rising in her chest. "If you allow me to show you my ID," she continued. Sloan turned her around and pressed her against the hood of his car, twisting her arm behind her with unnecessary force. The hot metal pressed against her cheek. Across the street, a woman named Camilla Reyes held her phone steady, recording. She was capturing everything that was happening from start to finish. Sloan didn't realize who he was dealing with yet, but he would find out soon enough. By then, it would be too late. "My ID is in my left jacket pocket," Naomi said clearly, making sure her voice reached the cameras she knew were recording. "I'm a federal law enforcement officer. Homeland Security investigations," she said. This didn't sound very convincing to Sloan. "Nice story," Sloan muttered. "Check who I am first," Naomi said firmly. "Before this gets worse for both of us," she replied. But Sloan showed no sign of backing down. He acted as if his own rules were the only ones that mattered. This bothered Naomi, but her training demanded she remain calm. Still, she was angry. Sloan tightened his grip on her arm. "You're under arrest for vehicle theft and resisting arrest," he said. The sound of a second siren pierced the afternoon air. Another patrol car arrived, its tires squealing slightly as it pulled up behind Sloan's vehicle. Officer Dan Holt jumped out of the car, a rookie with 2 years on the job, his body camera active and recording. Holt paused as he assessed the situation. A well-dressed woman was leaning against the hood of the car, her arm bent behind her. No apparent threat, neighbors recording from every angle. He began questioning himself. He was trying to understand what was happening. "Sloan, what's the situation?" he asked. "Stolen vehicle suspect. Resisting arrest," Sloan replied. "She's not moving," Holt said carefully. His eyes went to Naomi's face. Calm, controlled, deliberately making eye contact with the body camera. Because she wanted to be sure everything was being recorded. She thought she might be able to use the footage from that camera later on. "My ID is in my left jacket pocket," Naomi repeated. "Federal badge. Please check before proceeding," she warned once more. Holt looked at Sloan. Standard protocol is to verify identity, he said. I make the arrests, Sloan snapped. Then do it right, Holt said, his novice voice tinged with harshness. Let her take her ID, he said. The neighbors standing on their porches had stopped pretending not to watch. Camila Reyes had moved to a better angle, holding her phone steady to capture everything in high definition. 3 doorbell cameras in nearby houses flashed constantly. Everything that was happening was being recorded. Sloan's grip loosened slightly, not out of obedience, but from the growing awareness that he was surrounded by recording devices and a colleague who would not be ignored. Naomi slowly and carefully moved her free hand to her left jacket pocket. She pulled out her ID wallet, black leather, embossed with the federal seal on the front, and opened it. The Homeland Security Investigations badge caught the afternoon sunlight. Gold, official, non-confrontational. Holt's breath caught audibly. He had studied federal badges extensively during his academy training. SA badges were distinctive, impossibly convincing to counterfeit. He looked at the photo ID next to the badge, then at Naomi's face. Sloan, his voice was tense. This is HSI, senior agent, he said. Sloan stared at the badge. The arrogant certainty on his face vanished instantly, replaced by a series of emotions: disbelief, calculation, and finally realization. It must be fake, he muttered, but there was no convincing tone in his voice. Sloan was trying to find a solution on his own. Perhaps he thought he could do something this way. His anger towards Naomi had not subsided. It's not fake, said Holt. He had already reached for his radio. Central, this is Unit 247. Send a supervisor to Maplewood Drive immediately. This concerns a federal agent. The radio crackled. Then a sergeant's urgent voice announced, all units, stand down. Release the suspect immediately. I repeat, stand down. Sloan's hands dropped. Naomi straightened up, deliberately smoothing her jacket with calmness. Turning fully to Sloan, her expression softened, her eyes cold with the certain anger of someone who had seen this happen before, to people who couldn't show their federal badge in a critical moment. She knew Sloan could do as he pleased. Officer Sloan, she said quietly. Certain Holt's body camera was recording every word. This vehicle is registered in my name. I informed you of my federal status before removing me from the vehicle. I have been compliant throughout this incident. You neglected standard protocol, used unnecessary force, and made an unjustified arrest. She paused. I will be filing a full report with your department, my agency, and the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, she said. This had the effect of a cold shower on Sloan. He felt like his whole world had just come crashing down on him. He would soon learn that his mistake would cost him dearly. Sloan opened his mouth. He closed it. He couldn't say anything. Also, Naomi continued, I recommend you say nothing else until your legal representative arrives. The chief arrived within 4 minutes. He glanced at the scene, the recording neighbors, Holt's statement, Naomi's ID, the red marks on Sloan's wrist where he had held her, and understood immediately. He saw he was in big trouble. Officer Sloan, return to your vehicle, he said. Then to Naomi, Agent Caldwell, I sincerely apologize. Are you hurt? I have a bruise on my wrist. Nothing requiring urgent medical attention. She looked at him steadily. But I will document everything, she replied. Naomi was furious but trying to stay calm. She just wanted Sloan to be held accountable. As Sloan returned to the patrol car, Camila Reyes put her phone down. The video she had recorded was 4 minutes and 17 seconds long. It showed everything: the unnecessary use of force, the false accusation, the badge being shown, Sloan's reaction. Every detail was clearly recorded. She uploaded the video before her supervisor's car drove away. By late afternoon, the video had been viewed 800,000 times. The video spread faster than anyone could have predicted. By midnight, it had surpassed 2 million views. By morning, all the major news channels had aired the video. The footage was clear and damning. A federal agent had been treated like a criminal on a quiet residential street. His repeated attempts to identify himself ignored, excessive force used against a compliant woman. Whichever way you looked at it, the evidence incriminated Sloan. Naomi spent the evening at her mother Laya's house, 3 blocks from where the incident took place. Laya was 71, a retired school counselor who had spent decades helping children navigate systems designed to make them give up. Without speaking, she examined her daughter's bruised wrist, then made tea and sat down across from her at the kitchen table. As a mother, she was angry about what her daughter had gone through, but she was also deeply saddened. No one wanted to see their daughter's wrists bruised like that. Had anything like this ever happened to you before? If it had, how would you have reacted? You're going to file everything, Laya said. It wasn't a question. Every document, every record, every protocol violation. Naomi gripped her cup with both hands. But there's more to this incident than Sloan, she said. She had been thinking about this since Amiri left. The call Sloan had received before stopping her was a dispatch report marking her car as stolen. Her car, registered in her name for 8 months, had somehow appeared in the system as a stolen vehicle. This was no coincidence. She pulled out her laptop and began typing in the registration number. What she found caused her to set her tea down on the table. Her car had been flagged by a private towing company called Dixon Automotive Recovery, which had contracts with 3 municipal police departments in the county, including Maplewood. The company's owner was a man named Ty Dixon, whom Naomi recognized from a public corruption file that had been sitting on her desk at HSI for 6 months. Naomi had just caught a lead. Dixon Automotive Recovery had filed over 1,200 false vehicle theft reports in the last 2 years. Each report caused the police to stop the vehicle. Most of these stops resulted in the vehicle being impounded. Dixon collected the impound fees. It was a revenue system based on fabricated crimes, targeting residents who lacked the power to resist. It was absurd, but they could get away with it. It was as if there was a loophole in the system. Naomi spent the rest of that evening making phone calls. The next morning, she returned to the HSI office with a 4-person investigative team and a federal prosecutor named James Whitfield, who specialized in public corruption. She laid everything out: the false report in her car, Dixon's false report template, the financial trail linking the seizure fees to 3 shell companies, and statistical evidence showing that 91% of Dixon's false reports targeted Black and Latino residents living in low-income neighborhoods. They typically targeted these types of families because it made the charges easier to bring. Because of their skin color, the police were quick to intervene. Whitfield studied the data for a long time. "This is RICO territory," he said. "I think so too," said Naomi. "How long will it take to complete the case?" she asked. "The groundwork has been laid for 6 months. What happened yesterday is the starting point, and Camila Reyes's video is a public record." He paused for a moment. "The case could be filed within 2 weeks," he replied. Whitfield nodded. "Get it ready," he said. Meanwhile, the Maplewood Police Department was in crisis management mode. The department's public relations officer issued a statement describing the incident as a communication error currently under internal review. The police union issued a statement supporting Sloan and claiming he followed established procedures. Everyone was trying to prove they were right or clear their name. Officer Holt voluntarily submitted his body camera footage to Internal Affairs. He also submitted a written statement contradicting Sloan's account. The suspect was compliant from start to finish, clearly and repeatedly identified himself as a federal agent before force was used, and standard identification protocols were not followed, he stated. Holt knew what submitting this statement meant for his career in the department. He submitted it anyway. For Holt, being human came first. He might lose his job, but his humanity would always remain with him. Sergeant Mara Kessler, the union representative overseeing the internal investigation, summoned Holt to her office. "Do you realize what you've done?" she asked. "Yes, Sergeant," Holt replied. "Sloan has been with this agency for 6 years. She has supporters," she said. "I also have my body camera footage," Holt said. "And I have no intention of having my name attached to a report that contradicts what I personally witnessed." Kessler leaned forward. "This woman, Caldwell, is from HSI. She has resources most complainants don't have. This isn't worth your career," he said. "With all due respect, Sergeant, the alternative is—" Holt stood up. "My report stands," he said. 2 weeks later, federal agents executed search warrants simultaneously at Dixon Automotive Recovery's main office, 3 storage yards, and the private offices of 2 Maplewood city officials who approved Dixon's municipal contracts. They found everything Naomi's team had anticipated and more. Preloaded fake police report templates on company computers. A spreadsheet tracking which neighborhoods yielded the most profitable fake seizures. Email chains between Dixon and a city official named Marcus Webb discussing how to keep the program going while managing the occasional complaint. Financial records showing nearly $4 million in fake seizure fees collected over 3 years. They had found all the documents and information. With this evidence, the entire system could be brought down. They also found a list of residents who had officially complained about the fake seizures. Many had received threatening letters from Dixon's lawyers. A few had been targeted with multiple fake flags after complaining, a deliberate intimidation strategy to deter further complaints. Dixon was arrested at his office. He said nothing without his lawyer present. His lawyer arrived 40 minutes later and spoke even less. 3 days after Dixon's arrest, Maplewood Assistant District Attorney Patrick Mercer, who had consistently refused to pursue complaints against Dixon's company, became the subject of his own investigation when financial records showed a total of $60,000 in campaign contributions from Dixon's shell companies over 4 years. Mercer's office declined to comment. The city council held an emergency public hearing. The room was packed. Residents who had lost their vehicles due to fraudulent repossessions, community organizations, church leaders, journalists, and numerous people who had simply watched the video and come from neighboring areas. Naomi testified. She presented the evidence her team had gathered with the precision and steady clarity of a senior federal agent, not as a victim seeking sympathy, but as an investigator presenting facts. She walked the counsel through Dixon's system step by step, connecting the financial trails, documenting the targeting patterns, and fully explaining how Sloan's fake car theft report fit into the larger scheme. Camila Reyes testified. She described what she saw from the sidewalk, why she started recording, and how she felt while watching the events unfold. Her voice was quiet but determined. "I recorded because I saw people hurt by officers abusing their power. Agent Caldwell could have been seriously injured. How many people didn't get a chance to show their badge," she said. Officer Holt testified in writing, following his union's advice not to appear in person. His statement was read by Naomi's lawyer. He said what he always said, the truth, plain and simple. Holt was never an officer who abused his position. For him there was only one truth, the law. When the counsel projected Camila's footage onto the screen in the assembly hall, several council members visibly flinched. The footage was a clear 4 minutes and 17 seconds of recording that no official statement could gloss over. Everything was clearly visible. Sloan, sitting in the assembly hall with his lawyer, looked at the screen. Then he looked down at the floor. When the footage ended, the council president turned to Sloan. "Officer Sloan, would you like to respond?" he asked. Sloan suddenly stood up. The woman aggressively reached for her jacket. "I was responding to a potential threat. This whole investigation," he continued. The footage shows a compliant woman slowly removing her identification despite being asked repeatedly. Naomi said from her seat, her voice clearly drowning out Sloan's. "The footage shows this," she repeated. The room fell silent. "Remove him," the council chair told security. As officers escorted the protesting Sloan toward the exit, the audit chief, Dr. Patricia Okafor, a calm woman who had overseen 3 major departmental investigations during her career, stood and addressed the council. "I recommend that criminal proceedings be initiated immediately against Officer Sloan for wrongful arrest and civil rights violations. I also recommend a comprehensive investigation into the quota and seizure practices documented by HSI, the contracts awarded to Dixon Automotive Recovery, and the campaign finance records of the relevant officials," she said. Applause began in the back of the room and spread forward. 73-year-old Reverend Marcus Burke, pastor of the neighborhood church and a veteran of countless such hearings, simply said, "Amen." Leah Caldwell watched from the gallery. She had sat in rooms like this for 40 years. Sometimes she had won, but more often she had watched the system swallow complaints and continue unchanged. Today felt different. She kept her expression calm, as she had taught her daughter to do, but her hands were clenched tightly in her lap. Naomi did not look at her mother during the testimony. But when it was over, and she stepped down from the witness stand, she saw Leah waiting by the door. They walked in silence for half a block under the afternoon sun. "Your father used to say justice moves slowly," Leah said finally. "But when good people push it forward," Naomi finished, "it definitely moves." 6 weeks later, Sloan accepted a plea deal. 5 years in federal prison, no badge, no pension. Dixon pleaded guilty to RICO charges and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. 2 city officials resigned before charges were filed and made their own deals with federal prosecutors. Sergeant Kessler was removed from duty following an internal investigation. Mercer withdrew from his re-election campaign. A federal court ordered compensation to be paid to residents defrauded by Dixon's fake foreclosure scheme. The church in Naomi's mother's neighborhood hosted the distribution ceremony. As community members stepped forward one by one, Father Burke stood at the pulpit. Those who lost the vehicles they needed for work, those who paid fees they couldn't afford, those afraid to complain, each received a check. Each received a document acknowledging that what had happened to them was wrong, documented, and prosecuted. Officer Holt was transferred from Maplewood to another location at his own request. His new assignment was in a department 2 counties away that demanded officers proven in constitutional policing. The body camera footage taken that Tuesday afternoon remained as evidence in federal records. Naomi returned to work with a new title, Commander of the Joint Task Force on Public Corruption. The bruises on her wrist had faded. The file on her desk had been replaced with 17 new ones. During the meeting, a message arrived from Camila Reyes. A photo. Camila stood in front of Dixon's now empty main impound lot. The doors were open, children were playing in the empty space, and community volunteers were planting a small garden along the fence. Naomi glanced at the photo for a moment, then put her phone down and returned to the file in front of her. There was still a lot of work to be done. There always was, but things were moving forward, and that was enough. Some days that was everything.